How's it going, everyone? Gotta talk once again about the dire state of PlayStation and the game cancellations, and Jason Schreier spoke quite a lot about it, and now Jeff Grubb has added to it, and the fact that Bluepoint and Bend Studios, their games both got canceled. Remember, Bluepoint's last major game that they put out was Demon's Souls Remake of 2020. That came out in 2020. Bend Studio did Days Gone back in April of 2019. That's the release windows of those games. They have since then, Bluepoint had helped out with God of War Ragnarok, but since then has been working on a God of War live service title. That title has been canned, and then Sony Bend Studio was also working on a live service game. That, in fact, has been canceled as well, and it has been noted that Sony had canceled these games and had not notified Bend Studio and Bluepoint Games of this, and they found out at the same time as everyone else. Development teams weren't told ahead of the news, reports it claimed. And then Jeff Grubb also added on, I looked into this a bit. Yes, all of this is true. The two studios found out at the same time as everyone else, so people will be going into work today wondering, hey, okay, what are we doing next? And what they're going to have to do next, very likely, is pitch something to Sony, and the landscape of that has changed pretty drastically. Now, that's a very interesting thing to talk about because, first of all, if they were given no heads up on these games being canceled, I am curious, were there signs? Were there rumblings? Certainly, somebody must have known that there were at least a chance, there was at least going to be a chance that this game would never get off the ground and actually be released. You later explained a couple of years ago you'd bring to PlayStation your pitch. That is, it's a live service game. We know you want to hear that. And can we use the God of War IP? We know you want to hear that. And then they get the green light, and then they get the budget, then they get the funding, they can grow their studio, hire more people, the people working there are safe. I so want to talk about this because this is such a key, important part of this whole story in live service gaming in general, and whose decision is it actually? Grubb continued noting, and now they have to go back to the drawing board and come up with a pitch that PlayStation wants to hear when no one really knows what they want to hear, and so it's a rough situation. Look, there's gonna be development studios that maybe you'll look at them and be like, well, Rocksteady wanted to do a live service game. Well, Bluepoint, they wanted to do a live service game. They thought they could excel at that. Well, if PlayStation, if the higher ups are nudging you along and you know for a fact that they want to hear you do a live service game and you want to preserve your team, you want to grow your team, you want to get the funding, obviously at that point you'll be like, hey, how do we get this funding? How do we get the green light? We gotta go the live service route. That's gonna give us a much better chance of actually getting funded to do a project. That'll give us a better chance to retain all of these jobs, hire new people, so on and so forth. So keep that in mind when you guys are like, this wasn't PlayStation's decision, the studios wanted to do it, or this wasn't Warner Brothers' decision, Rocksteady wanted to do it. It's like, okay, they may have been open to doing it, but they may have also been pushed along the way and knew for a fact that, hey, this is what Sony wants right now at the moment of those games getting greenlit. So that's a big part that I feel like sometimes gets lost in a lot of people on how these games get greenlit in the first place. And when we look at decisions being made, like, I like to remember that you guys look at a lot of games being revealed and you think about where we are right now in the world. I think about when were these games greenlit? In 2019, 2020, gaming was exploding and live service was really popping off. Like, I can empathize with that fact. I would have also said, because I feel like I have a decent understanding on what ultimately will happen when all of these live service games would get pitched and get greenlit, I should say, is ultimately Sony is losing out on what brought them to the dance. They're losing out on their identity, and that is these marquee single-player games that we aren't getting them at nearly as consistent of a basis. And the reality remains that live service has a fundamental problem and will always have a fundamental problem when you're trying to bring out 12 games that are in development concurrently, is that nobody has that amount of time, that it is 100% guaranteed that of those 12 games, your best case scenario is like 2 of those games pop off. It is impossible for every single game like that to pop off. And on top of that, when you get into this mode of just chasing the live service bag and not letting the studios retain what made them them. Bluepoint, this great remake studio. Yeah, Bend Studio didn't get a 95 on Metacritic with Days Gone, but they did a damn good job with Days Gone. Why not let them get another shot at it? Well, that is something that they don't see as valuable. They would rather, Bend Studio, y'all learn something about how to do an open world game? Alright, spin that into a live service game. Let's try to sell some skins here. We ain't about the Hellgas. We ain't about Killzone. We about Concord and selling y'all skins for Concord and games of that. Like, that is what they thought was going to resonate. And I would say that it is them being criminally out of touch. It is incredible how out of touch you could be, but at the same time, if you factor in that, okay, the higher-ups, they don't give a damn about the PlayStation brand in the sense of, oh, PlayStation is known for these marquee single-player games. They're about revenue, and they don't care about gaming as much as we do. They care about what's going to be profitable, what has the potential, keyword there, potential to generate as much revenue as possible. And God of War live service, I could totally understand how, if you are totally out of touch, not realizing that not every game that's a live service game is gonna pop off like Marvel Rivals, I could totally understand why you would want to hear a game like that be in development and why you would greenlight it. And let's go back to the one success PlayStation has had, Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is still Helldivers. The authenticity of Arrowhead as a studio, that was never eliminated. The live service element complemented Helldivers, whereas these other studios, it really feels like they are forced to work within the confines of live service. And I say forced, obviously, you can say they're not forced to do anything, but that's what they want to hear. That's what PlayStation wants to hear, and that's what happens when you take a studio known for great remakes. We're out here talking about Legend of Dragoon getting a remake, and they are working on the title that I think everybody is just infuriated by, a God of War live service game, and that is PlayStation being so inept, so criminally out of touch. And again, this is why I don't want Xbox to put their games on PlayStation right now. I would rather Xbox keep their games exclusive for the sake of them having market share and Sony feeling some sort of lasting consequence for this, because in the grand scheme of things, they're not gonna face any sort of consequence for this. Yeah, they burned a lot of millions of dollars on these live service games. Who cares? It's not like anybody's gonna go on over to Xbox. They'll regroup. The only one that's losing out with their desperation to get these live service games on market and trying to pop off with them is the consumer. We as the consumer bought PlayStation 5s, and we are not getting Sony's best foot forward for the types of games that we want to get. The consumer is losing out on this, and it's not great when Sony doesn't feel lasting consequence. Remember when Xbox tried to go always online? I'll bring that up over and over again. Sony came back, smacked them right in the face for it, because they tried to do something that the consumer also didn't agree with, but Sony was there to give a direct consequence to Microsoft that they are still feeling to this day 12 years later. Nobody is there to give Sony that smack in the face and them losing market share, because we need a competitive environment. Again, I don't care if it's Xbox, I don't care if it's Amazon, Apple, just somebody, so Sony and PlayStation doesn't have free reign to do whatever they want, and right now, they do. They could literally greenlight another 12 live service games, and ultimately, what would happen? Yeah, they would burn a lot of money, but you're still gonna make passive revenue off the third parties releasing their games and all this other stuff. I'm sure that they don't want to do that. They don't want to greenlight another 12 live service games and burn a bunch of millions of dollars. I'm sure they're not gonna do that, but again, we're living in this world where Sony can make a lot of misplays, a lot of mistakes, and they won't feel any consequence for it because there's no competition. And I think that's a dangerous place to be in. And in fact, I said it again, you know, 2025 might suck for PlayStation, but if in fact we're gonna get a lot of Xbox games on PlayStation, man, the lack of PlayStation games on PlayStation is being made up by Xbox games on PlayStation. Would you think of that? But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts. And also, let's just bring it up, let's just say this again. Give your studios a lengthier heads up. They shouldn't be finding out online. Even if they did have an idea that it was gonna happen, they should have, you know, quite the heads up, and it'll be interesting to see where they ship. But I'm gonna be real, and I've heard other people say it as well. I don't think Sony Bend is long for this world. What has Sony Bend put out from PlayStation's standpoint? This is a studio that put out Uncharted Golden Abyss, okay, a game that released on a platform that didn't pop off. They released Days Gone, a game that PlayStation considers to be a commercial failure. And they did a live service game where it didn't come out and they burned a lot of millions of dollars. Like, I don't think Sony Bend's gonna get another shot. I think they're gonna get shut down. And I hope that's not the case, but that's what I'm thinking. I don't think we'll ever play a Sony Bend game. Can we actually just get them as a final hurrah? Can y'all port Uncharted Golden Abyss to PlayStation 5? Like, that's a game I'd like to have on PS5, but nevertheless, I don't think we're gonna see another major title for them. Bluepoint is interesting because Bluepoint has been a home run. I mean, Shadow of the Colossus remake and then Demon's Souls remake were both stellar outings for them. So we'll see how all of that turns out, but that is gonna do it for me. Again, what a wild story, and Sony's gonna take a long time to recover. I think we're gonna have quite a few barren years for PlayStation game release. Like, thankfully with Insomniac, we'll have Wolverine next year, we'll have Ghosts of Yote this year, But it's gonna be, I think, one major game a year and maybe some smaller titles to round things out, rather than, imagine Ben's studio. Imagine this year, we got Ghost of Yotei, and then we also got Days Gone 2, and then you had third-party titles like Death Stranding 2 coming out as well. It would be a stronger year, and ultimately, it's not gonna be that because of, you know, chasing the live service bag, but that's gonna do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.